Welcome to IB Unplugged, a Cognity podcast for IBDP educators that tackles your submitted challenges and questions by connecting you with experts and peers who share their ideas and stories from real classrooms. Whether you're a seasoned educator or new to the IB world, each biweekly episode and guest aims to equip you with practical tips and positive inspiration, helping you teach with more confidence, creativity, and joy. So whether you're walking your dog or commuting to school, hit play and join a community of educators ready to learn, laugh, and thrive in your IB journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of IB Unplugged. We are super excited for this one because this episode we're going to be welcoming back to the show Paul Rondie, who of course is IBDP maths teacher and works here at St. Gilgen International School with me. But actually beyond that, he does all sorts of stuff with the IB. He's a principal moderator. He's a curriculum review team. And so today we want to talk a little bit about the IA moderation process. We want to talk about curriculum review, kind of peel the curtain back on those sort of things.
Yeah, I think that he's a great person to talk to. One, because he's a great guy. Two, because he really works in some of these parts of the IB where it does feel like for some people there is a bit of a curtain that does need to be peeled back. So we are going to talk about the IA process of what happens after you submit your IAs, but also what happens before. What do you do during the curriculum review? What are the things happening behind the scenes to make sure that this is as great of and fair of a process as possible for all of your students?
Yeah, we're really glad you're here, and we hope you enjoy the show. Paul, welcome back to IB Unplugged. We're really happy to have you come back. One of our repeat guests. And I'm a little bit sad that we don't see the green headphones from your son. I think that was one of the biggest comments we saw in your first recording.
I certainly heard a lot from my sons about it, I can tell you that.
Yeah. But, obviously the first time we had you around, we were talking the MYP to DP transition and that sort of thing. But now I'm really excited to have you on talking about the maths curriculum in a little bit more detail, giving us kind of pulling back the curtain in terms of what happens to the maths curriculum once we send things off, right?
Yeah, well, maths has always been kind of my first love, I guess, away from everything else. So it's nice to talk about maths for a change.
Great. Well, we've already asked you different warm-up questions last time, so this time we thought we would move into a different direction. And we have a special request from our producer, Katie, of what is it like actually having to work with John Patton?
Wait a second, that's not on the... We had that on here?
Yeah, no?
Oh, man.
Do you have any beans to spell?
I mean, that sounds like a John Patton question, to be honest. He does like to make things about himself slightly.
Oh.
John Patton. Well, he's a good guy to work with.
Should I leave for this?
No, you're okay. You're okay. I can say nice things. We sit in a lot of meetings now together, and we've kind of learned not to look at each other because we know what each other's thinking. We've got to that point in our relationship where we know what each other's thinking.
It's a special bond.
Exactly. And it's important we don't look at each other, otherwise we make each other laugh. So.
Well, I mean, I have tremendous respect for you in many, many areas, and especially you bring such a wealth of knowledge and such a good insight to maths, not only all the other hats you wear at the school, but just maths itself. And so I'm kind of interested with how has your experience behind the scenes, principal examiner, involved in curriculum review, that sort of thing, how does that change your approach to teaching maths for our students?
Well, I mean, I think it's first thing I would say, I think any involvement in the IB, any IBEN work that people do, it's the best PD you can do. You can go on all the workshops you want, but to do anything in IBEN, to do any examining, curriculum review work, anything like that, it's the best PD. And I take so much. I mean, the students were asking me, because I've been away for the last few days on curriculum review, and the students were asking me what I was doing, what it was. And they're really interested in it, and they're really excited about the fact that their teachers involved in it, and that they think they're going to get some sort of advantage out of it, which they're not really. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but
they do kind of sparkle, right? They're like, you're on the inside.
Yeah, stuff, and that's good. And so that's the thing. I think I take into the classroom what I learned there, learn doing these things, and that's good.
Yeah, I like that.
And through that experience, is there anything that you wish that all IB teachers knew about this kind of curriculum and assessment process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main thing that teachers need to know is that it's teachers who are doing that. It's teachers who are doing the moderation, it's teachers who are doing curriculum review, it's teachers who are going around schools and evaluating them. All the IBEN members, they're just regular teachers. Yeah. And, we all hold down our day jobs as well. But it's a really kind of key part of the whole process. It's not IB men sitting up on high, kind of looking down on you and ordering you around. It's teachers who are sitting in rooms and having intelligent conversations about intelligent stuff, and it's good. That's I think that's what I'd like people to know, and a shout out, get involved.
Yeah, I think that's so important because there's so many times where you'll hear it in classrooms where teachers will just be like, well, the IB has decided to do this, or the IB this. And it's like, that's us. Yeah. When we say the IB, that's us. It's the teachers here. And so I really appreciate you calling that one out.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, I know we've got kind of two main areas we want to get into with our chat today. And the first one we want to look at is like the IA moderation process, right? Like just peel this back a little bit. I know so many teachers, they send off their IAs, they kind of follow the details, they follow the rubric, they mark it, they, do everything they can. And then it's kind of like, I'm not exactly sure what happens next.
Sure.
But suddenly I get some information that comes back. I've been moderated down. I get a feedback report that sometimes it's hard for me to interpret. So I'm excited to kind of get into that a little bit more. And I wonder if you can just sort of set the scene for us first. What actually happens when a student's IA is submitted for moderation? Okay, yeah,
it's a big question actually. And I think I'm actually going to take it a step back from there. And what happens before the student is submits their IA. The process that goes on behind the scenes is it starts. Well, I mean, it's starting this month for the May session for the principal moderator like me and my team, because we are getting scripts that are being submitted by schools who submit them early. And we're already taking a look at those scripts and looking at which ones of those might become good training scripts for the markers who are going to be marking in the May session. So we are finding scripts and we are looking at those, and they're either going to be scripts that the teacher will qualify on to become a marker for the session, or they will become seeds which are the scripts which are kind of interspersed in the regular marking, and generally a teacher gets like 10% of their marking is a seed.
And the seeds are basically to make sure that the examiner is marking to the standard, right? It's like staying within tolerance.
Exactly. So we're setting the standard as a team, and as with me as principal, and we're setting that standard as a team, and teachers mark to that standard. And if they're out of tolerance means that they're kind of over 2 marks away from what the team thinks is the mark for that, then they will have their marking reviewed. So when a student submits their IAs, when the school submits the student's IAs, then that's what's happening. The teachers are marking those scripts. The moderators are marking those scripts and marking them as best they can with these seeds. Then if they're out of tolerance, then we know that maybe they need to kind of revisit some of the training materials.
How do you determine what is going to be seed sort of worthy? Like you said, you're kind of looking at the stuff that's early submitted.
Yeah.
I guess I'm interested to know, like, what are you really looking for? What's like, hey, this is going to be a great training one? Or are you also looking for like, this is kind of what fits the grade 7 grade descriptor kind of thing? Like what are you looking for? What are you discerning?
A complete range. It's a complete range, everything from low marks to high marks to, but we try and keep them to relatively regular scripts. You wouldn't want a seed to be a script which is kind of out of the ordinary, because it's kind of a little bit unfair to deal with that. We do get out of the ordinary scripts, and there's a different thing that you would do with those. An out of the ordinary would be one where perhaps they have written to the old marking criteria, or the student has, or the teacher has marked to the old marking criteria, or it just doesn't fit the process that we were expecting. You wouldn't want one of those as a seed, but there are procedures in place to deal with those sort of things. But for seeds, it's regular scripts where you can just check. And I mean, it's a good process. I mean, it's the idea that we want to check that the marker is marking correctly,
right?
Is definitely a good thing. And there's temptations, obviously, to mark really quickly,
sure.
and just agree the teacher's marks. Agree the teacher's marks, and
I mean that's the first guidance, right? For
absolutely, agree the teacher's marks, but agree the teacher's marks when the teacher's marks are there to be agreed with. It's why the big shout out for this is why we really encourage teachers to put their comments and their reasons for the marks that they're giving, because it really helps us to kind of confirm the teacher's marks.
So it's better for, if I'm a teacher, I want to give kind of the best chance for my students. It's like I should be adding comments justifying my grade as much as possible. I've marked hundreds and hundreds of scripts. I mean, literally hundreds and hundreds of these things.
Somebody really like that.
And the frustration is when a teacher either doesn't say anything or they tell me they just write back the marking rubric back to me, and I already know that because I've marked hundreds of scripts, so I don't need to know that. What I want to know is why the justification for the mark, and it really helps. That it genuinely helps.
I mean, you may not be able to share this, but if I'm listening in, it sounds like there might be a slight advantage for schools who submit early, because there's a higher chance that a principal, like examiner or that team's going to see it. Is that true?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I wouldn't say there was any numerical advantage in it. Okay. Maybe the feedback could end up being better at that stage because you're not like 400 scripts into it, but I wouldn't say there was any market advantage. No. But I mean, get them in early anyway. I think it's good for the school, definitely. To not leave all of these things until the last moment. Mm-hmm. You're nodding knowingly here, but
no, I'm not. That has never happened to me.
So just get them in when they're done and leave them be and let us take over, basically.
Mm-hmm. And so for the moderators, you were talking about the seeds that kind of help hold with accountability, but even before they start marking, what is the process to make sure that a moderator is good at moderating?
Yeah, I mean, we have these qualification scripts that a teacher a moderator needs to do, and they have to pass. And if they don't pass, then there's another set of qualification scripts, and you just need to pass to be one of the markers. I mean, there are two. I think you said standard level maths analysis, just one of the 4 courses as their principal moderator. We have 200 markers in the team. So I have myself, and then I have a standardization team which has 4 of us. There's a French equivalent to me, a French and a Spanish principals, and then just like teams and teams and teams of people. And the great system, I think that what really helps is there's team leaders, and underneath them there's the moderators, and there's a process where if you're marking a piece and you have a query, you have something that you want you don't quite understand, you go to your team leader. If the team leader's unsure, then they'll go to one of us principals, and we can help each other out. It's it's almost collegial, in the way that that's done, and there's no shame in getting a script and saying, I don't know what to do with this one. I'm really unsure. Yeah. And if we don't know what to do with it, then it's generally you send it to the quality team in the IB, and they take a look at it. Mm-hmm. And so there's also that process whereby, if there's plagiarism suspected, for example, or if something's so out of the ordinary, or like notation isn't showing in the papers because it's been uploaded badly, then there's processes that we go through, and we have places that we can send them. So
I'm curious a bit on the nitty gritty for math specifically. In the IA, which part of the process is kind of where you see the most discrepancy between where teachers are marking and moderators?
Yeah. I mean, we'll get on to curriculum review in a moment, which is where we've been working on kind of new criteria, because the old criteria, they've lasted for it's coming up to 14 years, I think, which is when I was first involved in them. And there's one particular strand in there, which is one particular objective in there, which is the personal engagement, which has always caused a little bit of difficulty with people understanding exactly what that means for a math script. Personal engagement. Yeah. It's clear in my mind, but it's clearly not clear on paper. So that's something that we had to keep on clarifying. Personal engagement is the idea about making an exploration your own as a student and collecting data or thinking creatively or in some way making it more than just a kind of a standard report. It belongs to the student.
There's got to be an element to which you have to trust the teacher's comments on that too, right? There's only, I don't know, it seems like a student can only write so much about I'm interested in this thing because... I mean, how much do you kind of rely on the comments from the teachers to justify
for that? Surprisingly, not at all, because personal engagement has to be visible.
Okay.
So it needs to be visible within the paper. It's like criteria E is demonstrating your mathematical understanding. You have to be able to show your mathematical understanding, right? It's similar. I have to show my engagement in the piece. So it's not an effort piece. It's not, this student worked really hard in really difficult circumstances to write this paper. Personal engagement is exactly asking the right questions.
I wonder if that's actually the one that has the most teacher bias, because they're the one, that's the one where they have the most context and they're like, oh, but I know what he means.
Sure.
He really cares about this thing or whatever.
Yeah, and it's difficult to get rid of that bias. So honestly, I know a lot of schools where you would never mark your own students' work for exactly that reason, because you can carry so much forward.
So you don't mean to, but it just shows up. You have this relationship with a student over a year and a half or more, depending on when you're doing your IA, and so you see, I know how much they've worked for this, and I'll just, you don't mean to, but it just shows up. So hence why that internal moderation, or as you're saying, don't mark your own students, pass it around the team, right? That's
the internal moderation is something that we. Obviously, it can't happen in every school. If small schools, for example, they find that very difficult. But I think internal moderation, if you can find a way to do that, even within the maths department, even if you're teaching different courses or kind of looking for your region within your regional group of schools, perhaps to try and find moderators or other teachers to work with and moderate that way. I think that's a useful thing. We've
relied on it some with, we're part of ACES, the Association of Central European IB Schools, and just that sort of regional group, that's been a huge benefit to say, we only have, for example, one global politics teacher here reaching out to other schools. Anybody else have a global politics teacher? Should we do some, moderation buddies? I mean, I think that's a big advantage of being part of a group, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you say is it the how to interpret the work or how to moderate the work? What would you say is the most common misunderstanding that teachers have about the IAs and how they're marked?
What's their common misunderstanding? I think one of the main issues that teachers have with IAs is the feedback they get when their marks change. So, and it's a complaint because they don't get it, or they don't get enough, or it, and I'm not trying to explain that away, but in many ways our hands are tied as moderators, because we're told by the IB to not talk about individual pieces of work. Right? We can't name a piece of work and say this is what went wrong on this one, and they have their reasons for that. But I can't name a piece of work. So the feedback I'm trying to give is kind of hinting at issues which are within papers without naming a paper, for example, and that's not an easy task. And also, not every school gets feedback, because if you're marking within tolerance, if we're agreeing with the school, then we're not giving feedback. So we're agreeing with you. And I think that can sometimes be frustrating as well, because even if you're doing it well, you want to be told what have you done? What have I done? What did I do differently this year than I didn't do last year? And this one I've got it right. And so it's I can know the frustrations, and I think that's probably kind of one of the biggest kind of kickbacks that we get. I do know that I received kind of email in the last couple of weeks from the IB talking about feedback and giving more examples of feedback to teachers, to moderators, of the types of things that schools might find useful. So hopefully that's something that we can work on. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely a frustration.
Yeah. What about with academic integrity? I think that's also something that teachers don't necessarily know how it's handled in the moderation process.
Yeah, so if it's suspected, then we know where to send it. There's a academic and honesty. Off the top of my head, I can't actually remember what it's called, but I've got we raise an exception for the script that we've seen. Mm-hmm. What they will then do is then obviously investigate it, and it could be a very quick investigation. I mean, if a student kind of miscites something or doesn't cite a single thing, then it will get thrown back and it'll be remarked, and generally, that it's seen as a kind of a genuine error. Mm-hmm. But obviously, if it feels like the piece has been AI produced, or has kind of like the hallmarks of I marked a piece a couple of years ago, which was just the same as one of the exemplars that we had, and it was just like, don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, honestly, don't do that. And those things get sent to and then it's out of our hands. I mean, that's not our job to do anything more than to raise the exception. Mm-hmm. The IB, the academic honesty guys will then investigate and, where necessary, get in touch with a school. And I was having a conversation the other day about this, and they were saying how much more frequently I believe that they're getting in touch with schools and having calls with them and saying, can you show us the evidence of the work that's been produced? And I think that's such a great thing. I mean, it's hopefully a big warning to people, that they take these things seriously and they're going to follow up on them. And so, DP coordinators tell your students, this is happening, and you lose your diploma over it.
Yeah, well, and your teachers, and build in your process and your practices such that you are in a place where you can defend maybe is the wrong word, but you can support your student when there is an investigation that comes into play. And the number of times we both were friends with Matt Glanville, and the number of times I've spoken with him, and it constantly comes into, well, we want to trust that you are not submitting anything that is inauthentic. And so you've got to have a robust process that makes sure that what we're submitting is an academically honest piece of work.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when that investigation comes into play, hopefully your DP coordinator feels like we've got the stuff we need to make this work. Yeah. I want to return to the feedback just briefly, because I've been in that situation where there have been a few times where, for example, we've been spot on and we haven't had any feedback come our way because they've agreed with us. And then the next year it's like, whoa, we got pulled out of. And we look at the feedback and you go, well, actually, I wrote all those things. Like, I already kind of took those marks.
And we got it right last year.
Yeah, right. I got it right last year. And this year, I'm already dinging the student because they said that thing. Why am I getting sort of pulled back a bit more? And, sometimes, as you say, that feedback can be a bit of the frustrating bit. So I wonder, can you expand a little bit more on, how the feedback report is generated? You kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. You can't identify a specific piece of work, but how does a school get their own specific feedback? Yeah,
so as we're marking, obviously we're writing on scripts where we're awarding levels or so on. We tend to concentrate on where levels change. So again, it's not necessarily helpful if it's staying the same, but concentrate on where levels are changing, and. So what would happen is a moderator gets 3 scripts from a school. So they get those 3 scripts from the school, and if those scripts are within tolerance, if the moderator agrees with them, essentially, then the school's marks will stay the same, and no feedback is given. Mm-hmm. If the 3 scripts, one of them is out of tolerance, or at least one of them is out of tolerance, then up to 10. Making it up to another 10, depending on how many students there are, all of the other scripts are sort of given over to the same. Yeah, the entire sample is given over, and so those are marked. Now it might be that all of the rest are okay, and it was just this one that was okay, and in which case the moderating factor would be very small or 0, the mark by which you would change, and it could be that a number of them are. So as you're marking these additional scripts, then you are kind of making a judgment on those and what's going awry. And it's not actually until you get to the end of the process and you go into and I'm asked to produce feedback that I realized that these 10 scripts were all from the same school. Up until that point, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just marking. So I'm not having any sort of like kind of conscious bias over the fact, oh God, this school was terrible in the last script, it's probably going to be terrible in this script or anything like that. It's just basically when I get to the end and then I know that I have marked 10 from this, and then I can go and have a look at the marks and have a look at the scripts and say, okay, criteria C, that's where mistakes being made most often. That's the feedback I'm going to give to the school, that's probably where they need to concentrate their practices in the next year and recommend some.
Is that decision at team leader or is that a principal moderator? Because I know, like as a moderator, I had a moderator, I just kind of mark them straight through and go. But yeah, who's kind of making that judgment? I guess
the judgment about the final.
Yeah, this is criteria C is where you needed to. We show.
So in the feedback that you're giving to the school, that the moderator will give that feedback to the school, and then I as principal, I kind of get feedback from all of my team leaders, and from that's where the subject report is generated. So if we have noted that in this session there has been a general misunderstanding of criteria C, for example, then that's something that we can bring into the subject report. And again, big shout out for subject reports. I think that they're a really, really important part of the process for schools. Teachers should be reading them and particularly just before they're about to introduce their, an IA, for example, they should be reading.
Or again, when they go to Markham.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a big process, and but it kind of, it kind of makes sense. Yeah. Kind of makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah. When you're a teacher and you're giving a lot of feedback to a student, you kind of have a certain idea of what you hope the student will take from it.
Yeah.
The expectations versus reality are sometimes really different. And I'd imagine it's the same with also giving feedback on IA moderation to the teachers.
Like you've had some personal experience.
No, I mean, it's just the number of times I've written on a feedback saying, please provide comment on the script. It's just like, I wish people would listen.
Yeah. Okay. So step 1, please write comments on your IAs. Great. Step 2, how in a perfect world you hand over a bunch of feedback to a school, maybe especially one that has a really big deviation between what would you hope that school would do with the feedback? Because it does take you guys a long time to give that kind of feedback.
Yeah, sure. Well, training, I guess, would be, either internally to reflect as a department and look back over those scripts. You can request them back from the IB as well and have a look and see, maybe you don't entirely agree, but it's good to have the discussions. So maybe get those discussions going within the department, and workshops are available as well if it's if you feel like it's a kind of a serious issue. So I think that there's training that can be done, and sometimes it can be just a minor tweak. It's rarely it makes it making it sound really bleak. It's not. So the majority of schools are intolerant, right? We're only talking about those ones that aren't, right? And of course, those are the most those are the ones you hear about the most. Those are the ones who are on Facebook forums and various places who are saying, I'm always moderated. Maybe there's a reflection there.
It's also the part that at least from my experience, we've done a lot of different webinars on different things at Cognity about either the IAs or the exams or whatever. And there is nothing that lights a fire like a group of teachers who get in front of a moderator, especially a principal one, and be like, well, 3 years ago, I had a student and I got this and I got marked down. There's really a deep frustration or misunderstanding that comes, I notice, especially with the IAs. And
I probably get it wrong occasionally. I hold my hands up, or a moderator probably gets it wrong occasionally. But we are genuinely honest and doing our jobs and try, you know, and not trying to. I think you know, I have a great team in standard level maths, and I think we've really got this understanding that we want to agree with the teacher, and we want the student to do well, and I think that we have a really realistic understanding of what we expect of a standard level analysis student, and that's really helpful. So having a great team really helps too. So.
Becoming a better IBDP educator is a daily practice informed through reading, research, personal experience, and episodes from IB Unplugged, like the one you're listening to right now. But sometimes the show can go a bit too quickly, or we simply forget some of the key points once we're out of the car or back from our walk. So to revisit the content in a condensed version, you can download the episode summary at cognity.com/IB Unplugged. You'll find useful links to other resources and exciting bits of information that you can use immediately in your daily practice. So now, back to the show.
Man, thanks so much, Paul. It makes a lot of, it's good to peel back the IA a little bit and kind of understand. I know we're talking math specifically, but you can see how this applies to every other subject really in that IA process. And so I hope that's really quite useful. I mean, you know, you bring, like I said at the start, you bring such a wealth of experience and knowledge, not just in maths, but of course within the IB as well. And I know, let's maybe pivot over to the second thing we want to talk about today, which is, of course, curriculum review. And I know you've kind of just come back from part of that curriculum review and some of those things that you were doing. So, you know, I'm interested in if we can kind of clarify this a bit more for people. What is the curriculum review process and how does that look like? So, yeah, can you just kind of walk us through that? What does that curriculum review process look like from initial research to then final publication? What are you looking for? How do you kind of work through it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 7-year process. I kind of got involved in curriculum review my third one now. And it was because I was an examiner. And as an examiner, I was marking IAs, and the IB put out a kind of an advert saying, is anybody interested in bringing in curriculum review? Right, I can't remember what it was. It's 200 words on what you think of the current IA structure or something like that. So,
and you didn't hold back. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so you filled in a form and said what I felt, and good things, bad things, and I felt I probably came across as reasonably reasoned on this, and I thought, okay, that's somebody. And so I ended up being invited along. It was 20 years ago or something, around there. Invited along to that one. So it was quite a youngish teacher, not hugely experienced, and that felt good. That felt good for me professionally, and also it made me realize when I walked into a room and there were people from literally around the world, from big school to small school to state school to private school. Every single kind of walk of life is represented in the room, every type of school, and that's so deliberate by the IB, that process of curriculum review being representative. And that was an amazing kind of thing to start being part of, and it's actually through that I ended up becoming principal moderator as well. So that process of getting people to write in and give their current opinions is literally where we start. So when we walk into curriculum review, then there is sheets of or kind of emails full of all of the feedback that's happened, and whether that be from, this current curriculum review, there was the usual kind of teacher feedback on the current IA, plus alumni and teacher survey, and principal moderators had written in, and they had done independent research, looked into various different systems around the world and so on. So it's a massive kind of
there's a reason it takes years to do it.
Yes, we get that collection of data, and that's literally the first hour or 2 hours is us kind of digesting what is the current feeling. Then on top of that, there are kind of IB things that we are told about. So for example, there's no secret, I think that
we can edit it out if it is.
But the IB diploma program it can be a stressful experience for students. It comes across as a stressful experience for students, and the IB don't want that to be their kind of their thing, right?
They don't want to be associated with students talking about it being like a hellish experience.
Exactly, and rightly so. They so constantly looking for ways that might be kind of alleviated. And that was definitely one of the focuses that, from now, is that the student experience needs to be a nice experience eventually, not a stressful experience. So
somebody went on the Reddit threads of the IB with the students. Okay.
So then again, when we're, and I was only concentrating on the IA side of things. There's a whole curriculum review going on with the curriculum, with the teaching curriculum, which I wasn't involved in. So just for the IA part of it, how does this IA that we're doing, how does that add to the student stress levels and pressure and so on? And what can we do about it, And then there's the teacher stress levels and how kind of like frustrated they might be with, as you mentioned about some of the feedback or the inconsistencies that might come out of the marking. Is that the fault of the criteria? So what can we do? How can we make those more valid? How can we kind of make that a better system as well? So we have to kind of consider what else is going on. Yeah. So I might, I've been, as I said, I've been involved in this IA curriculum review for a number of years. So, I feel kind of like responsible for it. And
I should hope so, Paul.
Yeah.
If anyone would.
I've got skin in the game, right? I've got, and so when we're sitting in a room, it feels, you feel kind of like, okay. I
got the weight. I got the weight on my shoulders.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's like, I think the IA that we've just, the system that we're going through at the moment is a good IA, but we have to be critical. I have to be critical of myself, and be critical of the process, and I got to try and make it better, and so it's been fantastic experience just to go through it again. So.
Well, and I mean, presumably, I think the thing about the IA that most teachers can appreciate is it's a way to assess parts of this curriculum that can't be assessed in a paper, right? If they're going to sit this paper at the end of the program, how am I going to be able to demonstrate the skills and the other sort of knowledge that somebody may be able to have? How can I just figure out their analysis and evaluation, for example, that I can't necessarily assess in a paper? Yeah.
It's absolutely one of the starting points for this particular IA. Is the criteria changing? It's in the curriculum review report, so I don't, I'm not giving any secrets away. The setup is there's a problem specification section, there is a abstraction, computation, and then interpretation, which is basically the inquiry cycle. So and strong. That's strong, because the inquiry cycle is such an important part of education. Problem specification can't be examined, put on a paper. There's no, how the problem specification is done by the exam, right? It's not done by the students. You can do abstraction, you can do computation, you can do interpretation on a paper, but you can't do problem specification, right? So that belongs in an IA. So an IA has to exist. If we want to assess that side of things, then we need an IA. And so problem specification becomes such a massive part of what the IA is going to be. And that's some of the what we've been working on is teacher support materials that will help schools to deliver strong problem specifications from their students, or students to deliver strong specifications.
You've mentioned it before, and I know I'm going to get it wrong, but it's when you look at it, it's something like this curriculum needs a review, it needs a refresh, it needs a revise, something along those lines, I guess. And so when you evaluate, the past 7 years of this curriculum, and you're like, how are we going to update this one here? Is that kind of, and I know I got that model wrong, but is it that sort of idea? Like, okay, what do we need? Do we need to rewrite this entire thing, or we?
Yeah, it does come down to that. It's that's done in the early. I think we're on like development meeting. I don't know what it is now, 7 or something. But in the early days, that's what it is. What do we need to change, and how much do we need to change? Is it a complete rewrite? And with the maths one, the curriculum itself, the content is only being reduced. So nothing's being added. It's not being changed. It's just being reduced. The quantity that will hopefully help again with that. Those kind of the students feeling more comfortable with it. The framework's worked upon. How that's going to be delivered, where the focus is going to be. There is a desire to focus on inquiry, for example, this time. So there's a little bit of work that's required around, well, what does that look like in a DP classroom? NYP classroom, I feel pretty comfortable with inquiry. The DP classroom, I think teachers are less comfortable with it. And so what does that look like, and how can we help with that? The IA is probably the part from the maths curriculum that has going through the biggest change. It's still the same kind of idea of an exploration, but it's the criteria are completely different because they're written with this inquiry cycle in mind.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the inquiry cycle, obviously that has completely changed the criteria. What other kind of changes have you seen, and what other reasons have you seen this for kind of making all of these evolutions over time with the way that the IA is structured?
With the IA, the AI is obviously a big influence. It kind of raises its head in almost every conversation that we have. And I liked the IB approach when we talked about this in a recent meeting around the IA. These words are confusing, aren't they? When we talk about the
And don't even bring in academic integrity, which is also
sure. And applications and interpretations, right? So, but yeah, so conversations happen around this around AI, and I like it because it's been this. I mean, I know you've had podcasts about this, but the idea that it's not, we're not banning it. We are trying to write an IA which allows it in, and allows it in a way that is useful to the student, productive, and the way that students should be using it. And so, people may be surprised that IAs even exist anymore. It was an opportunity. There was an opportunity to go no, right? Because you could literally plug it in and out pops an IA. But we don't want that. We expect schools to control that, and we expect them to help the students to produce something which is using AI as one of the many tools that are available to them. And I think that's a strength. It's a strength, and okay, if it's abused, then schools need to find systems to beat that, and we'll probably pick it up. And I don't know what else to say on that really, but that's definitely one of the kind of, it wasn't an elephant in the room because we talked about it a lot, but it was always there, right? And it just needs to be kind of approached well in schools.
Yeah. It's incumbent upon schools and the teachers, because we're the student-facing part of the IB. And we mentioned it earlier where it's like, it's teachers that are involved in all the IA processes, and instead of saying like the IB, accepting like that's me. I am the IB for these, the student experience is me. It's me in the classroom. And so I think it's maybe easy or attractive for a teacher to kind of expect the IB to make a rule and hand it down, and you will then do this sort of thing with it. But ultimately, I think it's up to us to help students understand you're making something meaningful here, and to offload that misses the point. It misses what you're really going to gain from this. And I think really we have to be the ones that do that, because we're student facing, and we have to help them understand that like it's not what you're producing in terms of the knowledge that doesn't necessarily need to be made. It's not like you're adding to our world of knowledge right now. It's what changes in you when you do that. Like when you go through the process and you do the research and you come up with something, big things happen on the inside of you that make you a better person. And if you offload that, you really miss out.
I mean, the difficult bit is that we know that, right? But
are you trying to suggest I'm ineffective in my messaging?
No, not at all. I mean,
this is what working with Paul's like.
Yeah. You're sitting here. You got a forum, and it's an important message. It's a hugely important message, and it's one that that we have conversations in the school, and we it's there. And the IB are having conversations, and they talk about it at conference and so on. But it is so important that integrity is just a huge part of everything that we do as student. We say to our students, but it's the teacher as well.
Yeah. I know we'll know which colleague I'm talking about, but if you ask the question around here, what's the most important thing we could teach our students? First thing they would say is have integrity, be honest. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I've talked to a lot of people who have been part of the different curriculum reviews, and there's like the common themes are always like, almost no one thinks that they're like surprised that they got on the curriculum review of like, I really am surprised they picked me, which I think is a really good thing because like you said, it does give like a really diverse group of opinions that are coming together. The other is, I understand why it takes this many years to get a new syllabus out every time. They're like, this is the amount of data gathering that happens, but also like democracy's hard. Yeah. And people their opinions really do matter. And there are a lot of opinions, and getting that narrowed down to something that everyone's at least compromised on does take a massive amount of time.
Yeah, sure.
And then the third is always that there is this kind of blue sky, in a perfect world idea of what they wish the curriculum looked like and what they wish the IAs and the exams looked like. And then there gets to a point where it's like, but it has to be scalable and authentic and really get to this point where it works in real life, not in our development meeting number 75.
Exactly.
And is there anything that has stood out in that kind of last piece there that has been either like a hard compromise to make or something that you actually feel really good that you found a workaround for?
It's a minor anecdote, but back in the first curriculum review I did, I remember we worked for a long time because it was a complete change in the IA that in the first one. It went from 5 portfolio pieces. I mean, will people remember that? I don't know. But 5 portfolio pieces to this one single IA. And we were working on the criteria and we nailed it. Yeah, well, how good are we? And then it got sent off to assessment, and it got sent off to somebody who came back and said, no, sorry, can't do that. It doesn't translate. All right. And it's like, okay, what do you mean by that? And it's like, well, in I can't remember what language it was, in Spanish, that this would mean something completely different. This is not, or this would be interpreted in a different way. Yeah. And you think, okay, that's a serious problem. We're going to have to revisit that. So it is always being conscious of people in different walks of life, different schools, different cultures. There's some amazing people in The Hague this week who come from very, very different backgrounds from me, and just so good to be able to talk and understand people's contexts. Yeah. But people, I guess, I want to reassure people that we do that. That we do concentrate on those sort of things. It's not just kind of middle-aged white guys sitting in a room and making these things. It's a proper constructive conversation that happens.
Well, I want to kind of connect what we've spoken about so far. I mean, obviously we've got the IA, we've got the curriculum itself and those sort of things. And I think you've shared so many really valuable things for anybody who's listening. And again, it's kind of maths focused, but in all reality, what we're talking about, I think, applies to all different areas of the curriculum. And so I guess I'm wondering, how can teachers stay aligned with the evolving intentions, with curriculum review, with the IA and that sort of stuff, and avoid outdated practices? I mean, you mentioned sort of the odd IAs that come in sometimes, where it's like, okay, they're clearly on the old criteria, not on what's going on now. What are the most effective ways that teachers can be like, I'm on point, I know what's going on? Yeah,
I mean, for curriculum review, a report is written after the curriculum review meetings, and read them. I mean, stay, and there's always an appeal at the bottom saying, any comments, anything you want to say about where we're up to at the moment, please send it in, and there's email address to send that to. And as I say, those are then read by people, us, when we're in curriculum review. So be a part of it, even if you're not in the room, then you can still be in the room with your comments. And being on the forums, being on the
Exchange, IB Exchange.
Yeah, being on IB Exchange, and being in any of the sort of situations where you can kind of post a question or give your opinion. We often get forms sent out as coordinators that ask for feedback, ask for things, fill them in. Just be part of the process.
Yeah.
So that would be my kind of like suggestion to people is be part of the process. You don't sit back and say it's all being, it's all rubbish. Be part of it and give the feedback and help.
Don't forfeit your voice, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Paul, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show, and really, really thankful that you took the time to talk with us today. And I'm glad we could get into this thing about, IAs and curriculum review. Real pleasure. And I'm really glad we got to share a little bit more of your insight and your professionalism with what you get to do in this part of the role too. So really, really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you very much. Wait for my next invite.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
No, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Paul.
IB Unplugged is a Cognity podcast hosted by John Patton and Courtney Marlene and produced by Catalina Gaffney. Be sure to subscribe or follow and share with your fellow IB educators. If you'd like to submit a topic, request, or question, please do so on cognity.com/IB Unplugged. Let's keep the conversation going and support each other in teaching with confidence, creativity, and joy. See you next time.